in the Griffin Room at the Town Hall. And I'll take I want to go into executive session. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Do you want me
Second.
to close the door?
Second.
Or-
Mike can get it.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Do I have a second?
Sure, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I think we have to take a roll call vote to go.
A roll
into
call? Okay,
executive
Kathy.
Kathy Green, aye.
Margot Fenn, aye.
Marcy Smith, aye.
Dave Callahan, aye. Okay, we are officially out of executive session. If somebody wants to open a door, if there's anybody outside, I'd appreciate it, checking. Okay. Time for public comments. And I think Mike's got a public comment he wants to make. So,
Thanks, Mike.
Good morning, Michael Locke, Executive Director of the Harwich Conservation Trust. Thanks for the opportunity to provide a comment in this portion of your agenda. The local comprehensive plan is in the home stretch with public comment due, I believe, by September 30th. And a topic I wanted to bring to your attention for consideration by the Real Estate and Open Space Committee, either on its own or in collaboration with Harwich Conservation Trust, would be to consider commenting on what the influence is of conservation land on the property tax base of the town, and to illustrate how negligible that impact is on the property tax base and rate, and therefore property tax assessments, which drives people's property tax bills. You have a case study here before you. We don't have to go into it in detail, but the overall takeaway is that as background, I met with the late Dave Scannell, Town of Harwich assessor, many years ago, and he educated me on tax base, tax rate, property tax assessments, and how conservation lands, when they come into town or nonprofit ownership and their property tax exempt status, what the influence is on the tax base rate and property tax assessments. Because that question periodically is surfaced in the community, whether it's at meetings like this, or just in conversation or correspondence with citizenry, being curious, because nobody wants to pay higher taxes. Why would they? And sometimes there's a misconception that, quote unquote, taking land off the tax rolls will artificially inflate the property taxes of the residents. And in this case, in this particular case study, the conservation, this is a real example, 2.24 acres on Route 28 in South Harwich, really at the gateway of the border with Chatham. It was a $355,000 assessed property a couple fiscal years ago, FY23 is the date of this case study. And the impact to the tax rate was 1/5,000th of a penny to bring that land into conservation. And that land is within the public water supply recharge to wells that serve 10,000 households. It's within the water recharge area to Red River. It flows down to the town's largest and most popular beach. It's also, again, providing that scenic green gateway for travelers back and forth on Route 28 as they cross the town border from Chatham into Harwich. Certainly important community values. And when you consider, again, the infinitesimal impact on the tax rate, the value is even greater. So I ask for your consideration of this case study and consider reviewing at your next meeting in September. If you are interested in submitting either your own comment or in collaboration with ACT to the local comprehensive planning committee, that's something we would be interested in. Thank you.
You know, this is another thing that we should be talking about in the next meeting. My concern is, I tried to read this thing, and there's just too many numbers. And there's got to be if you're trying to present it to the public, you've got to have something cleaner. Because a tax rate is one thing, but with the movement of, you know, the total values and so forth, the taxable portion at the IM of the town changes based upon what my neighborhood is doing and all the rest of the stuff. I think you gotta come down with it. It's not that people should be focusing on the tax rate itself on any one year. It's how much am I paying this year for taxes? That they can understand. Tax rates that go out into, you know, the 10 digits wide, it doesn't mean anything. And you're right. I mean, it's a thousandth of a penny per dollar. But, you know, you got a house that was, last year was valued at $500,000 and now it's $750,000. Your taxes are going up, okay? That's what they should be concerned about. And you gotta be able to separate out how much of it's due, you know, how much are they saving because of the expansion of, you know, new building that's going on and things of that nature.
Well,
I found this very, very confusing. And-
Yeah, I mean, I don't do math, but I,
Girl after my own heart.
I don't do that kind of math, but anyway, yeah, I mean, I think it's good for people to know that if we bring up, if a parcel comes up to be put in conservation restriction, and therefore it's gonna be removed from the tax rolls, that it's gonna have a negligible effect on, the overall number. I think that's important for them to understand.
Right.
But I think when people look at something like this, they're like, well, if we've got 800 acres preserved in Harwich, how much does that take off the tax rolls altogether?
Yeah.
You know, so they kind of want to know what the big picture is. So I think this is great, but it's like, it'd be tough for anybody at town meeting to understand, I guess, in the moment. They don't really have enough time to study that and understand it.
May I, Mr. Chair? Yeah, thank you for the comments. I think the idea behind this is to provide the concept and the math that backs it up, potentially as an appendix to the local comprehensive plan. That could be in a comment letter to the local comprehensive planning committee for their consideration. It's really up to them what they might advance as content for the local comprehensive plan. But I think this is important information for people with the calculation through a case study or case studies like this to back it up. So that would be the approach in terms of submitting a letter in the comment period for the LCP by September 30th.
And, you know, in the context of the local comprehensive plan, it's got such a broad scope that, you know, this level of detail will definitely get lost, you know. But if the concept can get across that really, you know, protecting open space doesn't drive your taxes up, and in fact, it can have the opposite effect by saving on town services and infrastructure. And also, you know, this cuts two ways, but real estate values often go up in proximity to protected open space. So, yeah, maybe your property's worth more because you have that protection, but you also have the enjoyment of that amenity, so, and all those common goods like water quality and, rural character of the town and, all of that. So it's a very complex calculation. There are tax numbers, but there are also lots of intangibles that, go into it. But, I think you're right that it does happen on town meeting floor almost every time a big purchase is proposed. Somebody gets up and says, what's this gonna,
Right.
mean? And so to be able to, do the math is a good thing. Yeah.
Well, I think what you do is we can discuss this next time around, but I mean, there's gotta be a simplified way of saying, if your property is worth X dollars, this is how much it impacts your tax rate. You find out it costs $1 or, because or something like that. I don't know. It just hit me with the dollars I'm paying, not with so much other stuff.
I think that's hard to do.
Huh?
I mean, I think it's hard to get down to that level.
I know,
Yeah.
and that's,
Yeah.
but that would make it easier for the
But
vast majority of
I
people.
think
to
at
come.
town meeting, if we're getting ready to, discuss, deliberate on a property purchase of a CR or something like that, it would be clear to say, this 17.75 parcel, would affect your tax debt or whatever it is by 0.00028, like negligible. So people know, just get it out there.
But that's just the rate. How many people know what their rate is?
Well, maybe not the rate, but
So,
But the rate.
it says here, the estimated increase to the tax rate. So maybe not the rate, because you're right, people don't understand the rate. But what does it mean to you in dollars and cents?
to an average,
Yeah,
here's price.
because if somebody says, this is, your property's gonna go up, your tax rate's gonna go up $1 for every, dollar that,
100,000 you-
thousand that you're taxed, somebody who has a lot of acreage,
Yep.
theirs is gonna go up a lot more, and that's just on top of everything else. So, yes, it's important for them to understand it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, not tax rate, you're right about that.
Tax rates,
Yeah, I mean, the things that drive tax rate are completely different, really. I mean, it has way more to do with, how many sewers we're building and,
It has to do with the management of the town. That's why
Exactly.
Chatham, although it's the highest volume,
Right.
it's the lowest tax rate
Right.
in the county.
Yeah.
And so it's just because the way they manage the town, however they do it, like you said, with the sewers or this or that, and they've been really good at it for a long time. Now, Sandwich is historically the highest, so, and how's that work, you know what I mean? But it's different for every town.
Yeah. So,
okay?
Well,
I'm
thanks for
impressed
your.
with your
Well,
math
so we'll
skills.
put- we'll put that on the
That was
agenda
not
for
on me,
next.
And there was another consultant in the mix as well. Thanks for your consideration.
Okay, thank you.
We will put that in there. Approval of the minutes. Are there any other public comments? Mark, welcome.
Good morning, Mark Kelleher, Select Board. As you know, I'm your liaison, so I'm on standby in case you need me to attend. I did read the minutes from your last month session. Just one thing that comes to mind, you may need some money to fund something for what you're planning to do with the parcels of land. I'll just mention to you, I was on the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee has a fund for unanticipated expenses. And I think now that I'm thinking about it, you were going to go to CPC to get some money, which means you'd have to wait till next fiscal year, if I'm correct. The Finance Committee does have, I forget what it's called, but it's been used in the past. For example, the harbor master had an engine that died on one of his boats. Unanticipated expense, not budgeted. Came to the Finance Committee, we could fund it. So I just wanted to bring that up to you. If this is, what you're needing is not a large amount of money, but a small amount of money, and instead of waiting to go for CPC to disperse it, which would be next fiscal year, you could consider the Finance Committee. I am not on the Finance Committee, but it would be worth considering. And I'll just say, I heard your comment about Chatham. They have a low tax rate because they have very expensive homes and very few kids at school. And hopefully, they're gonna pay a little bit more for our
It is true.
regional school system.
Reason why we had to, get the regionalized school system in the first place,
Yeah.
because they were in danger of closing their schools.
Right, so, anyways, again, when you need me, please contact me and I'll be here, so. All right, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Nothing else?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 11th, 2025.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Aye. That closes that one out. Okay. I put this review of parcels assigned to the select board, and I want to fill you in a little bit of what's going on, and I'll let Mike kind of tell me I'm wrong, remember things wrong or whatever. I just want to say that, that we had a meeting in July, and they have, the committee has decided to include the Sand Pond property that you mentioned, Kathy.
So are you talking meeting of the,
This is the ad hoc committee
Okay.
on selecting, I don't know, custody of property. Select property. So, 5.7 acres of Sand Pond will be presented, okay? I informed that I was not an advocate nor a detractor, I said, I want to hear more from others before
Yeah.
we make a decision. The decision was made to start making, the discussion included meeting with the department chairs about making presentations to the various committees. Mike took that on. Is there anything to report yet at this point?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Clearly, we're going to have the Water Department, Conservation Commission, and the Select Board is our objectives and so forth. And, what was it? I think Elaine says she knows the chair of the Water Department. If Elaine Shovlin. So, they're buds, they chat frequently. If you want to call her and work your way in there, Mike.
so Dave, when you refer to setting up meeting with department chairs, are you specifically referring to water conservation and the select board and not the general departments in the
No,
town hall?
these particular,
These particulars, so not,
organ-
not head of Board of Health and?
no,
Okay.
because we're trying to focus it in on
Okay,
the people who are going to be recipients of it or the decision makers and things of that nature. There's,
okay.
it doesn't need to be broadcasted out
Right.
at this point.
Yeah, no, I get it.
One of the other things that happened is that we started what I'll call a parallel project. By looking at, we found errors. Mark Robinson has been magnificent in terms of reading deeds and so forth. And there was some questions about some property that turned out, was listed as select board, and should have been under Conservation Commission,
Oh,
because it was bought with land bank funds. So we're getting into a whole other situation now of trying to correct the assessor's records
okay,
and so forth around land bank.
okay.
I'm sorry that Amy left, because I was gonna ask her to, I've asked her a couple of times, and I know she's extremely busy, to send me the list that she had created about land bank, or their conservation land. And Kathy, if you could please if you can find anything from CPC, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that we had given everything to the local comprehensive plan, when you put that together for the open space and rec, that they had a list of town-owned conservation land in your
We do.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the open space plan for sure, yeah,
Right.
in
How did
great
the-
detail.
So, right, and the big question I have is, what was the source that was used for the land, the long-term plan, comprehensive plan?
Oh, well, it was what was in the previous open space plan amended by the purchases that have been made, since
Okay.
that was.
See, I only would
completed.
have from the beginning of CPA funding, which was 2004.
You'd only have CPA.
I don't have the land bank purchases.
That's what I'm looking for, is for the.
You know what I'm
land-
Well,
saying?
Mark has that. I mean, he gave it to me. Mark Robinson has that.
Well, I asked Mark the source of his records,
Yeah.
and
I have
there's
it
conflict there too.
I
because
have it
he
someplace
never-
in my files, Dave. I can probably find it. Because months ago, maybe even years ago, I sent Mark an email saying, do you have, detailed information about the purchases that were made under the land bank in Harwich? And he said yes, and he gave them to me.
Well, he sent me a cover page to some report, and then a table. I said, well,
Yeah.
wait a second, this table is something you worked up, and I asked him for a copy of the report, and I have not yet received it. This was last week, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Because the problem is, what I'm finding is, there's a list over here, there's a list over here, and they're right about 80,
Yeah.
90%,
Mhm.
but they don't agree.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm a data guy.
No,
No,
We
that's
need
fine.
a single authoritative source for
Right.
information.
right. And there really was nobody charged with doing that. So that's why it's confusing.
Well, Amy had implied that at the last meeting that, well, we started it, but we never finished it,
Yeah.
it was never completed.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a data guy.
No, you are.
I did this for,
Well, Dave, was
for
there-
5 years as a consultant, I can tell you.
Was there land
There's
that
gotta
was,
be
land must have been put in conservation before land bank funds too, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah, there was.
is that like another list? Like, I know we'll probably have something from the land bank funding, we have the CPA funding,
Right, yep.
purchases. How about the before?
There's befores, yeah.
Okay.
We can find the deeds on them.
Well, that's
And the whole, what Mark was doing was what he talked about last month. And since he reads the deeds and he's looking for specific types of wording, and this qualifies or this doesn't.
Yeah.
And, that's how we found this one thing that, should be conservation, because very clearly it was land bank funds, it was during the timeframe, was
Yeah.
it January 1st, 1999 to 2006 or something, I think. But, I've gone through, I went through the registry of deeds, pulled out all of the property the town bought during that timeframe. And, pulled those deeds out, gave them to Mark. So it's just something we're trying to clean up.
Yeah.
I found, through all of this, I found something that the assessor said was land bank, and turns out it wasn't land bank. It was bought outside the land bank zones.
Right.
They even had HCP as a holder of a CR on that property. I said, I compared it against your data, the HCT database. It was not in their database at all. So I took another list of, conservation restrictions.
Okay.
All of those things really should. Now, I found errors within the assessors, or within the registry of deeds
Oh, gee.
indexes. I mean, those I can't change, I've found several of them in the past.
So do you hope to get be 90% accurate? I mean, it's never gonna be
I-
100%.
My objective is 100.
I know,
No,
I'm sure your objective
My objective is
is.
100%. I'm a data guy. Because decisions get made on those things. And as Mark has pointed out, because of errors in somebody else's, where they're getting their data from, suddenly it disappears, even though it was clearly bought by land bank funds. That is what we risk right now. And I'd like to get that so that we are really convinced that this data, or these properties are as protected as possible.
So that sort of brings us back to the question of what Mr. Kelleher was just talking about, which was funding to a certain extent, because we discussed how would we help fund Mark Robinson's support in this particular project. And we talked about maybe submitting an application to CPA funding, or, as he just said, that the finance committee has some funding. I don't know, what we're talking about in numbers, but,
Yeah,
I mean, should we as a group be talking about this? And if we are gonna submit an application for CPA funding? Which, again, to his point, wouldn't be available until next July, but at least we would know that it was coming or something like that. Or not.
You took the words out of my mouth.
Okay, sorry. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I'm glad somebody else did. Well, that was part of my whole point of having this discussion again today, was to see how do we fund it. Now, what Mark has proposed, Mark Kelleher's proposed is news to me, so.
yeah,
I-
I'm not sure that it would be viewed as an unforeseen expense. I mean, I think it's, I
I
think,
agree
this-
with you.
yeah, I
Yep.
think it's a little different than that, but, I mean, there's no harm in asking, but,
There's no harm in asking
Yeah.
the chair of the finance committee to see
Yeah.
whether it might apply.
yeah.
I agree that, or concur that that we need, we would have to have something for the September meeting, a vote at that meeting. And right now, I would say yes, okay, put it in for 2023. There's no rush on this. It's not like it has to be done in next year. But what Mark has been proposing in this custody meeting was basically, he had, when they did this in Brewster, Mark worked with a lawyer and said, now you're starting to pay legal fee. Well, because, Mark can read a deed, I can read a deed too, but he knows it, he's got more experience with reading, looking for specific wording. But in the end, you need a legal, opinion of whether somebody go through it as well. And this is what they did for Brewster, and it just took time, took money. And Charlie Sumner, who's on the committee, was the Brewster town manager. He funded Mark and the lawyer when they did the punk horn. So, there's an experience base there that, and, Charlie said, oh, here's the lawyer we used. And so I just want to keep this thing going, and if possible, put in a request to CPC. I haven't a clue how much it's gonna cost. I gotta just work with Mark and come up with a number, is it $100,000, or is it $10,000, or is it, what? But I'd like to do that, because I'm not one to write, and understand a lot of the stuff.
Well, can I speak? Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, it would have to come out of open space funds, correct? Wouldn't you think? Because
would
it's
think so.
ultimately
Yeah.
conservation of land.
Or an undesignated, I mean, because
Right, but
there's just corrections of
it still has to have like a
records.
category that it fits into. I
Yeah,
mean,
right.
undesignated is
That-
recreation, and, we draw from that for the other buckets, but in terms of a category that it fits into, it would fit into open space. And, I think that you would have to emphasize, you'd have to come up with an amount, for sure, and you'd have to be able to, give them how you came to that amount, X number of hours at whatever
Yeah.
for such and such services. But I think it would be important to note the number of volunteer hours
Oh, yeah.
that would be included with this whole ad hoc committee.
Yeah.
Because then you can show some balance, you know, you can show that, you know, we're gonna have this many volunteer hours versus just this much of professional services to reach a particular outcome.
Yeah.
And whatever the outcome would be, might be the potential preservation of, you know, not that they're not preserved right now, but lands that are under certain care and custody go into preservation for either water or conservation or whatever, another category. So I think it's important that you need to lay that out, because the committee and then ultimately the taxpayers are gonna wanna see, you know, what this is going for. It doesn't have to have a gazillion things that are attached to it that say this meets this goal and that goal, like Mike likes to do, but but, you know, just a boom, 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 you know, moving from point A to point B to point C.
There's certainly plenty of, volunteer time with the committee itself. I mean, all, the amount of time that all of those people are putting in, and, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really important, you know, like, when did they start meeting, you know, time frame, and how long do they anticipate this project might take, like 2 to 3 years or something like that? And the percentage of volunteer hours versus a paid professional hour, and then whatever the result is gonna be.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. Let's see, was there anything else? But just goes to show you how a project like that just start, what you start with, and then you start finding other issues that start pulling in.
We
And
need a fund of our own. Seriously,
Well,
seriously,
know,
we do.
part
Just like
of
an
it is,
operating fund for this kind of
Never
stuff.
gonna get it.
Yeah, I mean, anyway.
you know, we do have a fund, it's $500,000 for owner's unknown research. But
Right.
we can't get the town to spend it. I mean, and, you know, in this case, you know, we still have to work through a town manager
Yeah.
to spend the money, so
Yeah.
we'll see what happens on that. But that's what I had. Mike, did you have anything else you could add to that, or?
That's good, Dave, thank you.
Okay. So,
My apologies for missing the last meeting, too, to both of you.
okay. Yeah, that happens.
It does. It's been happening a lot to me lately.
All right, well, so where does that leave us, Dave, with the CPA a potential CPA application?
Who has experience besides Mike in terms of writing these things? Or Mike, you want to get involved with, or should I just work with Mark and Charlie?
I think a first step, as you're describing the intention, would be to have a conversation with Mark
Yeah, okay.
about what the scope might look like, and that would drive estimated cost.
Okay. Hmm.
Yeah, and discussing with him what the outcome, what the hopeful outcome would be.
There you go, yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
That, I think, is important.
yeah, definitely.
You
Okay.
know, so, you know, for short money and a lot of volunteer work, we could end up with, you know, this assemblage that is more protected than it is now.
Yeah.
It's basically what we're saying. We're not talking about purchasing anything. We're not talking
Right.
about that. We're talking about
Nope.
further protection.
Or correcting records. to
Correcting
reflect-
records, true.
to-
Which
to-
will help going forward, because it'll be a more streamlined process. So that's something that it'll be going, you know, in perpetuity. You know what I mean? It's not like it's something where it's a one and done,
Yeah.
so.
Until the assessor changes and
Well,
and
yeah,
all the rules get ignored.
But given the, I'm not being Debbie Downer here, it's just that, given the pushback that we have received in the past
Yep.
to our sort of minor, you know, suggestions of changes in care and custody over the years of this committee, I know we're hoping that, you know, with the partnership of the compact and HCT and the ad hoc and water department, other whatever, that we can present something that has a little bit more strength to it, to the Board of Selectmen. But, you know, given that we've had a lot of pushback in the past that the Board of Selectmen, for a variety of reasons, including that they just never know what they might need municipal property for, down the road, you know, we might end up with nothing happening. Again, I mean, hopefully not, I'm just saying that we could, so one might say, if you were a taxpayer, you know, like, well, geez, do I wanna spend 100,000 of taxpayer money to end up in the same place that we've ended up before, which is like nowhere, no changes. I'm just saying, we just need to
Yeah.
kind of,
My gut says that the dollar amount's gonna be a lot less than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
yeah.
I just throw it, no.
yeah, I'm just saying,
Because I don't
I
know.
just think we need to, we just need to keep the taxpayer in mind.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
I don't want to waste money.
Yeah.
That's why I volunteer, is to, you know, help the town with that sort of stuff. But there's expertise I don't have, the committee doesn't
Yeah.
have.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I get it.
When it gets to, and, you know, do I want to sit there and use, given my past experience with the current town council, I would not use them for this sort of stuff.
Right.
They're just all over the map.
But we'd like to avoid using as much legal services as possible. So in other words, I'm assuming that, and I don't know because I'm not on your committee, but when Mark has to do his level of review on a deed or such, that you would prioritize as a group what would need further review.
Right, well,
And
that's,
that's where the other legal expenses would come, because that stuff can add up very quickly.
yeah.
no, we're not gonna ask, at least I don't think we are. I don't see us doing, asking for the lawyers to do all of the, you know,
Right.
they may review it. I mean, there's things that, do you agree that, you know, this is covered by that? Means they may have to read a deed, okay, or something of that nature. And I say, yeah, you're right, you know, that sort of stuff. But they may, you know, in the situations where there's a problem,
Yeah.
or there's questions and so forth, that's what we want to get out of the lawyers. And then we'll decide, based upon that, where we would go.
And we're hoping that they wouldn't have to do the deed research.
They wouldn't have to, no,
Because
I
that's
can
where
get,
you
I can get the
could
deeds.
really add up.
Well, that's
the
right, no,
money.
they
Yeah.
don't have to go out and hire somebody to go,
Yeah.
you know, go through the registry of deeds and so forth. I can get all of that information for them. I've done it for Mark. It's, you know, it's hours of time, but it's not,
I'm assuming that your committee is gonna prioritize the parcels anyway. You know, like if you end up with 25 parcels, you may prioritize the top 10 or 15. I don't know.
Good idea.
Depends.
well, it's the, you know, there's 9 slides now, I think. There's a fair number we've got in the pool. We haven't talked to the people who may be receiving it
Right.
and so forth, and then we gotta
Right.
present it to, you know, so the pool that gets to the public is gonna be something we all kind of agree on.
Right.
At least that's my feeling.
Right. So Mark would be able to come up with a scope of his professional services and then maybe sort of a generalized number for legal services up to a certain amount or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
that works. All right. Anything else with that discussion? Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Always appreciate your opinion.
Thanks, everybody.
Other than that,
Aye.
there's no new business, so we can't talk, there's nothing to talk about there. Member reports, has anybody got something that they want to bring forward, or nothing at all? No, to do that. My report was basically about the, happened with the select board property, or ad hoc committee. So the next meeting will be September 19th. Put on your calendar, because it looks like we got several things we're gonna have to discuss. I
Okay.
apologize that we couldn't get a month off here in summer, but It is what it is.
All right.
Maybe come November or December, we will get some quiet time. So if there's nothing else, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay.
Okay,
Thank you all.
so just, thank you.